I'm Dennis Dinwiddie. I'm the Director of Conservation and Education here at the Topeka Zoo and Conservation Center. And what we're talking about with this small exhibit is what is not recyclable that is often mistaken for things that are recyclable. The reason that's important to know what kind of things not to put into your recycling barrel is that when things go into your recycling barrel that are not recyclable, what that tends to do is to bog down the entire recycling system, which causes recycling then, of course, to be less efficient, more expensive, and therefore less used. So, as well as understanding what is recyclable and the importance of recycling it, it's also important to understand what kind of things should not go into your recycling barrel or into the recycling system. We just have a few examples here of things that are commonly put into the recycling barrels and into the recycling stream. Most of us have a recycling barrel at home, and it gets used for a lot of things that we believe is recyclable, but turn out to not only be not recyclable, but in fact harmful to the recycling stream. For example, we've all grown up to hear that anything that has a triangle on the bottom of it is recyclable because it has that recycling triangle on it. But here in Shawnee County, the only triangles that are recyclable are the ones with the numbers 1, 2, and 5 in them. So if you have something like that that has a 4, something like that that has a 6 inside the little recycling triangle right there, that is something that is not recyclable. So if you put it into your recycling barrel, then at the recycling center, it takes a great deal of human time and effort to fish these out of the recycling stream and remove them from that so that they do not go into the recycling stream, causing it to be less efficient. Some things we already know might not have a triangle on them, but we know they're not recyclable. For example, plastic flatware. When we're using plastic knives, forks, spoons, and such, that's not recyclable. Here in this part of our world, styrofoam is not recyclable. Even though it may have a triangle on it, it is still not recyclable because styrofoam in general is not recyclable. Now, it becomes confusing sometimes for things that are recyclable because we all know that cardboard is recyclable. In fact, it is the most recycled item that we have in our home recycling barrels. But something, for example, a pizza box. When the pizza comes in the box, if it has those food stains on it, it automatically makes that non-recyclable. And we don't want that going into the recycling stream because the manner in which recycling works is that all of it will be banded together in large 2,000-pound blocks. Then the inspector has to walk around it to make sure that it is within the tolerances, within the limits of being dirty. And if it is too dirty, then that entire block now becomes non-recyclable and the whole block then goes to landfill. But many people don't realize that every pizza box that you ever receive a pizza in actually has a place, a perforated edge where you can pull the clean top of it off because that normally does not have grease stains or food stains on it, so that you can put the part that is recyclable in recycling and put the part that is not because it is dirty into landfill, waste, your trash can in other words. Other things that we know are not recyclable are the waxy cardboards. If it is a waxy cardboard, then that makes it a cardboard that cannot be efficiently turned back into something new, so it cannot be repurposed, cannot be recycled. So if it's waxy cardboard, then throw that in the trash also. Don't put that into your recycling stream. Other things we know are recyclable, but to be recyclable, they have to be clean. Aluminum, for example, that is recyclable. It can be repurposed into a lot of other products. However, to go into recycling, it has to be clean. So when you, for example, purchase food in the aluminum pan here, or you have a drink in your aluminum can, any type of aluminum like that, all you have to do is rinse it out, clean it so that it can go into recycling. If it is not clean, then not only is it not recyclable, but it will contaminate the items around it, making those things non-recyclable when otherwise, had they not been made dirty, they would have been recyclable. So things like that, plastic that has a 5 on it. So that's one of the numbers, 1, 2, and 5 that are recyclable, but it's only recyclable if it's clean. So rinse it out, then put it in recycling. Some plastics are not the clear plastics as you might be accustomed to. They might be other colors of plastic, but they're still recyclable if they have a 1, 2, or 5, but even then, only if they are clean. So they must be cleaned before you put them into the recycling bin. There are some kinds of things we know are recyclable. For example, we all know that our plastic water bottles are recyclable unless they are not clean. This one, for example, has had a napkin stuffed into it. So now it is no longer a clean, recyclable bottle because it has trash in it, which means if you put this into the recycling stream, it has to be fished out and dealt with individually. So we can only recycle our plastic bottles if they are empty of anything, including the fluid that was sold in them, and if they are clean. And we have items called tanglers. Tanglers are things we don't want to go into recycling. Don't put them in your recycling barrel because those are the things that when you put them in your recycling barrel, they're long and they're thin, something like lights from your Christmas tree that don't work anymore, or extension cords, or even water hoses. These are things that are not recyclable because when they go through the recycling stream, they have to travel down conveyor belts where humans are separating out what is recyclable from what is not recyclable. Unfortunately, that's an enormous amount of machinery, and when you have the tanglers like hoses and extension cords and drapes or things like that that are long and flexible like that, they're going to get wound up around and mixed up with all the machinery, and then the entire recycling system comes to a halt and people have to come in and spend a lot of time clearing all that out, cutting it out of the machinery. So when you have the tanglers, the things that can get all tangled up in something, that is not recyclable. We have power sources such as batteries that they do not go into your common recycling stream. They can be taken here in Shawnee County, for example, up to the Shawnee County Household Hazardous Waste location and recycled with no problem. But they should not go into your recycling barrel because they are not recyclable through that part of the system. Everything that you do put in recycling needs to be not only clean, but it needs to be an individual item. Anytime we start loading things up into a plastic bag, if there's a plastic bag full of things that otherwise would have been recyclable, because you put them in a plastic bag, now they are no longer recyclable. That plastic bag is just going to be picked up out of your recycling barrel and put into waste to go to landfill because there just aren't enough people involved with this to be able to open every plastic bag and start fishing everything out of it to determine what is and is not recyclable. So even if you have a bag full of items that are recyclable, put them in your recycling barrel alone, not in a plastic bag. Putting them in the plastic bag automatically makes them not recyclable. Things that have items like gas under pressure, not recyclable. That goes along well with other kinds of containers that have had any type of chemical, especially toxic chemicals in them. If it has had a toxic chemical in it, then even if it has a triangle on the bottom, it is not recyclable. So it should go into the trash. So something like a paint can made out of aluminum has a triangle on it because it's made out of aluminum, but it also has a lot of paint residue in it, so it is not recyclable. Anything that has had toxic chemicals in that, for example, you put a quart of oil into your car, there is a triangle on the bottom of that quart, but it is not recyclable because it has had a chemical in it. So put that into trash. And then we have items that might have multiple different things in it. For example, a toy here that has a lot of wiring in it because when you push the button, it lights up. So that means it's got wiring. It has a battery, but it's all wrapped around plastic. The plastic might have otherwise been recyclable if it were all separated, but because it is an item that has all these different components to it, that makes it not recyclable because the people involved with making that system work simply don't have the resources available to stop and disassemble this plastic toy to separate the wiring from the battery from the plastic. So since it has all those components, put it in the trash, not in recycling. So the idea here is to understand what is not recyclable so that we don't bog down the recycling system, causing it to become less efficient and therefore too expensive and unwieldy and not something that is working for us. So follow the rule that when in doubt, throw it out. And of course, that's hard to say for people in our field because we want to see everything recycled correctly. But when in doubt, throw it out so that we don't bog down the recycling system, making it less efficient and something that we cannot all work with.